I must admit, in all honesty, I was leery of the Quansheng K6, K5. Okay, it feels really well built. It's a solid radio, not a very big battery, as you can tell it's on there. The Tid radio feels really cheaply built. If I key up, the whole display lights up. Well, I got the light on the camera, so you're not going to see it. Buttons are really small, hard to get your fat fingers in there without pressing more than one button. The con to that has a big battery. Yeah, they both can have experimental hacked firmware. The K6 does HF receive, so if I stop it, hit function, I think it's 0, and then go to 5 and enter in the frequency. Supposedly the TID can do something similar. I have yet to load the hacked firmware on it. But what the TID radio does do, and this is the only feature I bought it for right out of the box with the stock firmware, push and hold the 1. Let me turn the Quansheng on over here. Make sure I'm not on a out-of-band frequency. Get in my all-star node. See, it's not even catching it. There it goes. AA1PR, AA1PR. It should catch a code 173.8, but it says code off. So that's wrong. The PL tone open on my all-star node is 173.8. It doesn't catch it. I mean, you move the radio further away. Yep. And then I notice that the discrepancy when it does catch a code, it's like either 1 hertz or 1/10 of a hertz off from the normal standardized PL tone. So anyways, that's the only reason you would buy one of these if you want to do the hacked modified firmware. Other than that, if you're going to buy one as your main radio or something, you don't have the funds and you're just getting into the ham radio hobby, get the Quansheng. It is definitely better built. That thing feels like a Baofeng. Feels really cheap. You know, and if you buy a radio from Baofeng or make enough of them, they'll produce any radio you want with your brand label on it. So, I don't know. You can't tell me that's a TID radio. To me, it's a Baofeng in disguise. And somebody said, oh, it's a copycat of a Motorola, because if you see on the side of the screen, it says amateur transceiver. I guess there's a Motorola that also has some kind of writing up and down the side of the screen. So did they try to copycat the Motorola, or what are they doing here? But I don't know. Might have been one of my worst purchase decisions ever. I want to show you how much smaller this thing is than the Quansheng K6 or K99. It does feel heavy, where the Quansheng feels like it's definitely a lot less weight. So anyways, let me get this thing charged and we'll proceed on with the video. Something also not a big fan of right here. The USB-C charging ports on the bottom of the radio, where the Quansheng is right here under this port. So it has a protective flap so no dust and lint and all that other stuff can get ingress into it. You know, what's going to protect that? Since they don't give you a drop-in charger, I don't know. I bought this radio for one reason. It has what's called like a scan function. So if you're sitting in front of a building or something like that, and somebody transmits, has a close RF capture. There's actually little small scratches on that screen. There's no screen protector on there. Was this used radio? Oh no, there is a screen protector, a little green thing in the corner, but the scratch is just on the protector. So anyways, like I said, I'm going to get this thing on the charger, give it a few hours of charge, and I don't know, hopefully one of these LEDs will light up and let us know it's charging. On the Quansheng, you get a blue light on the left side of the radio. So what does the Tid H3 do? I know nothing about this radio. Have been on the Tid H3 hacking site on Facebook, and another group, the Tid Radio group, but hopefully everything's laid out in there. And once you do a modified firmware, or hacked firmware, however you like to phrase that, most of these manuals become obsolete, so yeah. You know, the color choices are black, this green, which is more like a day glow green. I guess I'm never going to lose this. Or a clear. I didn't care for the clear. And all my ham radios, and even this cheap Quansheng, is sort of in a blackish color, so we'll get something green. If this thing works as it does, I'm going to keep this in the Jeep. Use an outdoor walking a pet radio, camping radio. I think it has FM broadcast receives for your local radio stations. But anyways, other than that, and trying it for that close capture RF feature, I don't know, should I really do any hacked firmware, modified firmware? Seems like lately on the hack site on Facebook, a whole bunch of people are complaining there's a bunch of issues. The hacked firmware causes a bunch of bugs. Got to applaud the guy Marcus for working on the firmware and what it can do. But, you know, until there's a stable version, no bugs and no fixes that need to be addressed, I'll just leave it with the stock firmware. Why would anyone... Oh, they're both locking up on the railroad. Why would anyone buy Quansheng K5, K6, K99, whatever you want to call it, or Tid Radio H3? For experimentation purposes, experimental firmware. I don't think I've ever reviewed a radio that had so many issues, such poor quality control, that I've never really truthfully loathed or hated. This radio is probably the worst radio I've ever reviewed for cheap radios, yes. You know, it's like $34 and you pay their shipping and then you wait 2.5 weeks and, you know, but everybody on the internet, on Facebook, oh, you got to try a Tid radio, Tid H3 or H8. There's this marketing hype. You know, is it fueled by the guy that does the hacked firmware? I don't know, but I don't see the traction of this. I have a bigger attraction to my Quansheng K6. It's a much more capable, better sounding radio. Even my Baofeng 888 that I have is better built than this thing. I mean, yes, it has a close capture RF scan that I bought it for. Yes, it works. It's kind of noisy on receive, but it scans really slow. You know, the hacked firmware I wanted to try, watch that video. I was supposed to make it hyperscan, but yeah, there's a lack of documentation. So whoever's promoting this radio and doing it has a good job of marketing hype, and they're selling a ton of it because of that marketing hype. Caveat emptor.